This will be the one, yeah. Okay, I assume you can see that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so now I'm going to try and find, I think we basically said that we had stopped around the part where we were discussing about NVM, suggestion that NVM would be in core. And I'm just going to kind of pull out minutes here so that I can.
Did you finish past that, or did you finish discussing that?
Right, so let me go back to the minutes. So this is where the minutes were from the last time. So I see version management was one of the things that was highlighted. Mm-hmm. So we discussed that. I think the comment here was like, should we at least add it to the docs?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I mean, did you want to discuss a little bit that? I'm happy to sort of say let's start around there, and we can start by talking a little bit about that too.
I mean, I definitely think that version management should, like, having a version management binary in the project should be a thing that we do. And I know that there was interest from people, including like the Volta people, to do that, like literally just to do that. So I don't know. I think that we should do something along those lines. NVM, I love NVM. I use NVM personally. It also doesn't work on Windows, so I don't think it aligns with being used by the project. But
take a quick look. So go ahead.
I think that having NVM as a version manager as a part of the project, and that's something that ships with core, is something we should do.
So that's maybe something we should add to the list of the needs of the node constituencies, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this was actually something that came up in the ComCon meeting, which was like, there's when we were talking about the Node.js.dev documentation, because there was a problem in that. I don't think anyone in Node who uses Node day to day will be using the official binaries we provide from nodejs.org/download. Like, it's not a thing people use. I mean, people do use it, but not like they probably shouldn't be using it. And most people who have past intermediate, beginner users will not be using it. Also, I can't promote Joe, or at least it errored out when I tried that.
Oh, okay. Well, let me promote him then.
There we go. No, failed to change role. Cool. I don't know. I can't promote him.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that, but go ahead.
But yeah, I don't know. I think we should ship some kind of version manager with Node. It's not, it reflects how people use the project. And I think it's a miss on our part not to do that.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Joe, we couldn't promote Joe because he's logged in as the Node user. So I was just telling him that, but he also just saw it. So once he comes back, we should be able to promote him. Okay, so I think that's the note I can take, that we should add like version management as one of the needs of the constituencies, which makes sense to me. Under our list, we've got users, ops, appdev, libdev, orgs, and node maintenance. I kind of see that more under users, appdev, libdev. I'm not sure, like for ops, I would recommend it.
I think it's useful in CI, but like in, like a lot of like Jenkins and stuff, or not Jenkins, Travis use NVM directly.
Yeah, I could see that, but would it be for production deployment or for part of your development cycle? Is where I could see
it is built into like Travis as a production product, right? Like the feature, it is the tool that they've used to implement the version switching. Now, if it's global, I don't think so, but like there are products that are built with it in that way.
Right. I was more just thinking, like, I wouldn't use it to determine the version of Node that I have installed in my production thing, because there I don't really want to switch, and I want to know exactly which one it is, right?
The one thing I will say there is that I believe a lot of platforms, like at least I know Azure does, and I'm pretty sure GCP and AWS do this too. They will take a there are certain products that will take a MVM version from like the MVMRC as your like for the infrastructure as a service things like the Heroku like services.
Right.
They'll take a version from MVMRC if that's provided.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to think in terms of our list of constituencies. I guess it's not super. I don't want to.
I think it's. I think those are
like,
edge cases. Yeah. Those are edge cases for sure.
Because I can certainly see it. Anyway, we'll have a PR to put that in, and we can refine there. So just at this point, we can say, yeah, that's probably a need that we've talked about in a few different places, and is probably a useful thing to have in that overall list. Okay. Let me flip back to here. So okay, so we were at around there, MD. Okay. The next one was a bundled linter and core. So I guess that's something I know that's been discussed back and forth as well in some ways. It's interesting. I'm just going to look. That might have been what led to. Or sorry, I was looking at the minutes from the last time if I can find it. But, oh, right here, yeah. So we want to be able to think less about what we're pulling in. Yeah, so maybe not. So maybe that's kind of like, I guess that's leading into, again, like what things are useful, you know, to have built in versus not built in.
I think that I struggle with that one because it chooses a winner in the ecosystem because I don't think we want to write our own.
And it is pretty easy to get a linter in your, you know, and the linter won't work better in core either, I guess.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing that'll directly benefit. Like the direct benefit of having a linter in core is you have it and you don't have to npm install it, which is just like we're npm installing it or like whatever yarn, whatever. Yeah. We're just doing it for you. Which I don't necessarily think that's a good design goal.
It's more than that. If we ship a linter, we would have a set of default rules applied. That I think is more valuable than the npm install save.
Yeah.
Having a default set of reasonable rules, probably not all the rules in the world, would probably at least help people write common code base styles.
Are people like, I feel like the biggest user of that would be someone who is just starting, and like once you get past just starting, you're already at the point where you're going to have to download a custom set of rules anyway.
I mean, just starting is everyone when they move to a new team. Every time you learn a new product.
Well, no, but I think that's different though. I think if there's a team, they're going to have their own custom rule set. Like any team will be based on some specific style and not using Node Core.
Sure.
And so if they have their own rule set already, that Node Core rule set is useless to them. Right?
I'm not saying you can't have more rule sets added on. I'm stating that not having, framing it as though you never join a new project that has new rules is weird.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying that whenever you start something new, whether you're a beginner or starting on a new team, you have to adjust for whatever the lint rules are. If there's a common, at least, foundation, I mean, that seems a net benefit.
Oh, so what you're saying is that, like, you know, teams would base their rules off of our rules, and then that there would be less churn when you're changing teams.
My presumption is that would happen organically. I'm not saying you should enforce that they must only have ours.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like NPM
I-
defaults to ISC, and so you see a lot of ISC licenses out there.
Yeah. Got you. I wasn't getting they will build off ours, so there will be less churn, or that there will be some teams who build off ours, so there'll be less churn. Yeah. I mean, I guess the thing I was getting at was that like the people who I think are most likely to use the default rule set without changes will be someone who is completely new to JavaScript or Node or building a project with them from scratch and would default to that. Which I don't know. Like, I think that's probably good, but I don't know if that's good or not.
I think that's an interesting one. Maybe we don't want to spend too much time right now. We can sort of note it as something somebody mentioned. I personally think we'd have a hard time agreeing on one set. Seems to be things people are have strong opinions, and even within teams, it seems to be hard to choose the only one versus like several profiles. But
yeah.
But unless somebody is like, hey, that's a need that we need to have in the constituency list. I think it's kind of like it's an interesting technical thing that we could include in the technical brainstorm, but I'm not sure it's something to put into the needs of the constituencies necessarily as its own thing. What do people think on that?
I would agree.
Okay, so let's move on. So the next one, examples and documentation. Very lacking. Always have to search Google for full usage examples from a third party.
Yeah.
So I think that lines up with, I'm just going to go back to
I do think that's partly how our current doc pages are organized. There was it Gus who did a split single page per API build? I don't know if that ever got in.
I mean, I also think that part of the issue with docs is just that they're pretty inconsistent and honestly pretty thick. Like they're reference docs and not usage docs. Like they're not like particularly friendly. Like I was talking with about this with Suze Hinton like a year or two ago, like just before COVID, and I guess a year ago. And like Suze, I assume most of y'all know her or know of her. She's very, very good at Node, knows the ecosystem well. Gave me permission to share this, that like she can't use the Node docs. They're just completely useless to her because of how thick and inconsistent they are. And that's, I bring that up because that's a experience I've had and many others have expressed over the years. Like this is feedback that we've constantly gotten.
I think this just really confirms the consumable APIs and docs, right? And we've heard it a number of times. Docs are something that people would like to see better versions of. So we could spend a lot of time, but I think that's one we already kind of know. It's like, yep, docs. Many people have commented docs could be improved. We've got it in the list. So from this perspective, I think we've covered it from the, yeah, we know that's important. Sorry, I'm just lost now where I was. Okay, right. TypeScript support, I think that's been kind of mentioned a number of times, but sort of goes off to the technical brainstorm. It's not necessarily something I would call out in the needs specifically. It's more of like on the technical side, it falls into one of those other categories we have. Optional central package cache to reduce disk usage. That one, I guess, is, yeah, it's optional for sure. Like, do you want to share your packages or not? And I guess we'd need to understand a little bit more, like, how does that differ from like installing globally versus, but I guess when you install something, it doesn't automatically install globally for you, and you don't really have the option to say, oh, put these things global to share, does it?
So there's a difference actually from way back in yesteryear. So there was home directory.node_libraries, and that is different from global installs.
Right. Okay.
So a global install, when you install something globally, it generally doesn't change. It's fairly safe. If you upgrade one thing, it won't destroy another global install. With the shared cache, that isn't really true. If they are transitively updating across things, there are different ways to work around this, like PNPM does. What Dino is doing is basically the same idea. You install something to a well-known directory. It is shared across multiple working directories. They don't quite have the same module infrastructure as we do. My main concern with stuff like this is we already have tools doing this with PNPM, to some extent Yarn too, and Berry. I don't know what we can do except get package managers to properly do that, unless we want to re-add Node_libraries, which we disabled and ripped out by default because it used to be so problematic. Maybe we've solved the problems by now, but that's history.
Okay. I think again, it's probably getting into, you know, something pretty specific. I don't know if we would look at the needs.
I think this just is pushed out of our scope. It's more on package managers to sort out the actual way to do that, rather than Node try to pick an entirely new way. There's that whole
right. And how would that work with the different package managers as well?
I mean, the package managers have to agree to some standard of how they're going to store
Right.
their stuff. They don't agree on most things. So, yeah.
Yeah, did we have in here package management? I wonder if that should be in our constituencies, like that they need that, but we can, you know, basically understand that that's needed, but that's not something the core project is providing, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Literally every single one of those has package management as a need, and it's not something we're going to do.
Right. Would people agree to add that we should add package management as one of the needs?
I think that's fine, but we should at least give scope on that one.
Right. Mentioned that it's unlikely to be, that it's likely to be out of scope of the core project, right?
Probably.
Module, maybe it's covered by module dependency info and management. Let's see. Information, easy ways to gather information about the modules they depend on. That was related, but not necessarily broad enough. Maybe we can expand that. Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's worth making a little bit clearer. Okay. A way to add community contributed examples to core documentation. So CPHP, they have good docs.
I mean, honestly, this is kind of what I envisioned examples as. is a way to do that. Right now we're slowed by GitHub and platform issues with actions that I need to basically go rewrite the whole thing. But yeah, I think that this is a. I will also say, since this is on stream, I don't think PHP sucks. PHP is a good tool, and I don't think that is particularly warranted. But I think that there's. I like this, and I think it's also covered by the better documentation.
Yeah, I think it's covered by that, but yeah, it's an interesting. We should probably come back to some of these. This is another set of data we can look at in terms of the technical side of things. Okay, well, the next one is kind of like something supporting the framework that they like, so I don't think there's anything specific there. Confidence and security of widely used should be in core NPM packages. So I guess that's interesting from the more of the, I think it's kind of saying if you needed to import less or like install less outside, right?
Yeah, that's like, everyone's going to end up using UUID at some point for something somewhere. If you're writing Node stuff, it should probably be in core. Like I get that.
We might want to upstream this since TSC is also talking about vendoring modules out of the ecosystem these days.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we have that sort of thought covered anywhere in terms of like
another path. I don't know. Like this is, that specific idea is something that's relatively aligned with like what NodeSource was doing a few years ago. At this point, geez, I've been away for a while. In certified modules, where they're basically saying like, this is the thing you need to do, or like this is the thing everyone uses, or this is a good one, providing some kind of verification that like, or validation, external validation for people, saying, hey, this is like, something the Node project would recommend, or something like that, is, I think, a useful tool. But yeah.
It's kind of like confidence and security of widely used. It's kind of the thought of like, I mean, as I'm thinking like as a constituency need, it's like a solid base, or you could argue like a standard library, or it's something along those lines. I don't know if that's something we should add as one of the needs of the constituencies, like would it make, you have all the modules that are out there, and I don't know if we can say that, hey, people need everything to be trusted, but they may need some subset, like some core subset, to be trusted, or to be like have better confidence or something like that.
I'd agree with that. And when we were making the Node certification exam, even, we were trying to evaluate what modules we could kind of have as required reading before you even took it.
Yep.
And so we also in core have this kind of pushback against getting anything into core for various reasons. So we actually encourage people to leave it in the ecosystem, but we don't really give any support after that. So we're both like at this situation where we want people to read up and use outside modules. We don't want to put them in core, but we do want them to like use them just for basic everyday usage, like Node certification. And I think we should look at some kind of support, even if it's just like a rubber stamp that this is being watched in some way. Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
So, okay, I'll try and, I can write up something which is like there's a need for, a smaller subset of commonly used libraries, right?
Yeah.
beyond the APIs and core, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's because that's probably something many people do need.
Yeah, I mean that was the use case for that when certified modules was a thing was a lot of people don't necessarily know what the best thing is or what to pick. And like I'm sure all of us here could find find reasons to pick one thing over the other, have our own preferences. But like there are generally like community selected solutions. ESLint is a good example. Like regardless of whether you use standard or Airbnb style guide or whatever, like you're going to be using ESLint somehow. And so like someone outside of the ecosystem, someone like a Java developer who's having to like start learning Node isn't going to know that.
Yeah, definitely. Like for us, we've been looking at that internally in terms of like, people say, hey, what should I use? I don't care, right? Tell me. There's definitely people who would want to know that. So this I think is definitely a need. It's again, like these needs are not things that necessarily the core, it doesn't mean things go into core, but it's good for us to know as an ecosystem. People feel like it's a need, so. Okay, so that one was interesting. Okay, anything sports right? Security, what should we right? Security from the outset. I think we've got security as one of the, good security and CVE practices in the project.
We do have an open issue on Next 10 about making a formal security model.
Right.
Reminded the other day that this group can't make it though. So.
Right. I mean, then when we get to the technical side, this group won't necessarily be building any of that. It'd be more just trying to get consensus on these things are important. And that could be part of the, under the, would that fall under here? Good security and CV practices in the project?
I think it's under security, not CVE itself. The model itself is going to determine what's in scope and what is required in order to obtain your model. CVEs could be determined to be out of scope if we have a model.
Right. I'm just wondering if we, as one of the needs we have here, good security and CVE practices in the project. So they're kind of two separate things. Do we think that under the good security is enough to cover that bit, or should we expand this?
I think it's fine because you have to have a model to just state that.
Right. Okay. Good.
We have an old model doc, but it never took off.
Okay, so improve VM sandboxing.
Don't use VM as a sandbox.
Yeah.
I provide a sandbox, we might be able to work towards that, but that would be an entirely new thing, not the VM module.
Yeah, that one I know there's been lots of discussion. Like there's some, it's like there'll be like, well, some of it you can provide, say, you're putting in Docker, which will give you a bit of a sandbox, right? And then there's other kinds of sandboxing and stuff.
So there are off-the-shelf sandboxing, but in general, if you do real full-fledged sandboxing, you want multi-process architecture.
Right. So I wonder, like in that one, I think that might again fall more into the technical, like a technical thing versus a need overall. Although
I'd say that's technical. It's not.
Okay.
Because sandboxing is kind of out of scope. And the VM module even says don't use it for that.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, the security model for Node has mostly been, untrusted code, and until we have like a security model or something that would say otherwise. But that's probably part of the technical. Yeah, okay. Package manager ecosystem improvements. I think that we can cover through sort of enhancing that section we had on package management as one of the needs. We're going to talk a little bit more about like common, the way it's written, it talks more about finding out information, but I think we should extend it to say management as well. And better communication of the roadmap with non-maintainers. That one is kind of like, I guess we don't really have a roadmap. But I think sharing of information and so forth is definitely a need.
I've been just redirecting people over here.
Right.
They want a technical roadmap for features and stuff. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. But I think we've got that covered under this, a good understanding of the direction of the project.
Yeah.
So yeah, we understand it's important to kind of communicate what's going on and help people understand that. So we've got it covered in that. Integration with the web API. I think we've got that kind of covered under the, consumable API, and I think we had better than that. Relevant APIs and cores, I think where we would cover that. So it's more than on the technical side to say, okay, let's figure out individually what are the key APIs, and like, is it is one of our technical things we think is important is integrating more with the web API than we are already. Packaging and distribution for deployments.
So there are a few existing stuff with the Node Embedder API. This is more practical these days than it once was. The big thing here is I do think it's a need, because if you are a non SRE, basically deploying out Node things takes a lot of your time in your job if you're forced to do it. There are some things you can do like Docker images and stuff like that to avoid some of it, but you still spend a lot of time, managing distribution compared to some environments where you basically drop a single file on disk.
Right. Okay, so this is one where I think we could add we went into the needs. Like one could be the need to bundle Node, and like either as the embedder API or as, bundling it into something you can more easily distribute. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah. So Mongo and Anna made Box Node, which is probably the first bundler and distributable that uses the embedder API. Maybe we could just talk to her about it. I don't think we have to do too much on our end. We just
no. I'm more like I think I agree with it's a need there, right? And I think the need we would cover that one need should cover both like the need to embed Node, right? As well as packaging it up potentially some other way. Does that make sense?
The one problem with that is it requires a compiler chain to do so, which also is not a non-trivial ask for most people.
Right, because of the like the native modules, right?
The embedder API, yeah. The embedder API is only done on the C++.
Right, okay. Right.
So in order for you to even use things like box node, you actually have to have a compiler installed.
Right. Okay. That's kind of getting into the technical part that it's, even if you can kind of do it today, it's not easy, right?
It is not practical for the average user, I would
Right.
say.
Okay. So, but I think, you know, the next step would be to, like, you know, or it sounds like we should add this as a need, as one of our constituency needs, right? That's sort of bundling and embedder side of things. Makes sense to everybody?
That seems fine.
Okay. Right, analysis tools. I think if that means like diagnostic tools, we have that in terms of runtime diagnostic tooling.
I would assume that's like static analysis rather than like diagnostics.
It could just be like, show me what is imported.
Yeah.
I'm unclear.
Yeah, it's not really actionable, I don't think.
Yeah. It could even, I could think of all sorts of things for that, so. Okay, fast native code in my Node.js code, WebAssembly maybe. I think.
I mean, I think Nappy is doing pretty okay at this. Like the Nappy RS stuff is amazing.
I think we have WebAssembly support as well, right? Like
it's built in, but there's a cost to go over the marshalling between native code and VM code. And the only thing we can do faster there is there's a thing called fast function calls in V8, which is experimental, and we can just wait on that. They're a lot faster though.
Okay.
Excellent.
That kind of fits into the performance as well. So do we have performance, reasonable usage and performance? So I think that we've got covered. Easy concurrency, like Go, compiled executable. So I think the compiled to executable, we'll add something around the bundling and embedding, which I think is kind of related. Easy concurrency, do people know what that would mean? You know, we have the web workers.
I would say web workers are not easy.
Okay, so that I could see. I mean, the whole JavaScript model though is kind of the, like you get some of the advantages because you know you're not going to have true concurrency, right? Like web workers, you got to manage the concurrency yourself carefully, which was what makes it not as easy, but.
So I would say managing concurrency isn't my main problem, having written a decent amount of web worker code. It's actually getting data between threads is a real pain.
Right. Okay, well, I think that one I might suggest we consider again, like in the technical brainstorm. That's like, is improving our concurrency model important, or, you know, in whatever aspect. And if, like you said, maybe it's like improving how you transfer the data back and forth.
I think the more interesting one there is compile to executable. I'd love to see us do this. I don't know if it's something we'll do.
So we could add box nodes, like minimal bootstrap to our make file.
I would love that. I think box node is great.
It still requires the compiler, but at least we would be providing something.
Okay, so definitely we should make sure we cover that in the.
Anna about that though. I think it's got a license on it.
Yeah, it's Apache tool. It's also like owned by Mongo. So
should definitely make sure to include that in the, like, we have our, when we get to the technical brainstorming, we have a list, but we'll want to pull some of these things we've mentioned here out to that list too. Okay, we're almost down to 1 minute, so let's see if we can just get through native TypeScript support. I think we've already talked about TypeScript a fair amount. Again, technical side. Better support for Canary builds on Windows. I think that's not like a general need. That's a very specific. Take leadership in package managers and builder bundlers to have one standard, not new one every year, like in many other programming languages. I think we've kind of covered the need there of, like, you know, we're going to expand the package manage, the thing we had on module management to basically say there's definitely a need to have a package manager. We don't need to get into, like, this is a need, not the solution, which could be one standard or multiple together or whatever, but it's an interesting comment. Strict and comprehensive adherence to ECMAScript standards. So again, go ahead.
I would say we have done fairly well in that arena these days. The cost of compatibility.
Right. I think that kind of is covered in relevant APIs, right? Where are you? But it's interesting. Sorry, just getting back to the high performance. So I think we've covered that, and more batteries included. So I think we did touch on adding one, which is sort of that sort of standard, a broader standard set, whether it's in Node or not, to get started with. Okay, so I think we having gone through there, we have a few suggestions of things we should add in terms of the like the needs. And oh, wait a sec. Maybe I forgot. No, that was for a different question. Okay, so yeah, we've gone through. We can do that through a PR, and I think that would then close out our sort of review of the feedback. We did plan to want to work on a blog post to kind of summarize the information we pulled out of that. So I'll probably open an issue to do that, and if people want to help out, that would be good. Just for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning, we did talk a little bit. There's a proposal for a, if I can get there, a mini summit, so we can get through, you know, a few of the things we've had on our agenda August 5th. It sounds like, from the look of it, there's quite a few people who can make it. So I'm not sure everybody who's here has responded, but if you want to take a look there, that's looking like the date I'll probably try and schedule for that. And you know, I think that'll be good to get us to get through a bit more stuff. But otherwise, I'll say thanks to everybody who made it today and for helping us go through this. Look for some PRs in terms of, like, some additions to the constituencies and one to work on the blog post. And we'll see everybody in GitHub and in the next meeting. So thanks for your time. Okay, bye.
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 Cheers.